Welcome back to another project. In this project, we're going to create a recipe book application. As you can see from the final version of the project, we have a page containing different recipes, which we are going to get from an API. A recipe API, which is free to use, but we need to get an API key. I'm going to teach you how to get an API key from this free API. And each time here, when we refresh the page, we get different recipes with different ingredients. And also we have here a link to go to that website. In the next section, we're going to work on the HTML part of the project. So see you in the next section. All right, welcome back. In this section, we're going to create our HTML file. As you can see, I have put the final version here for our comparison, and we can just compare the final version and create the HTML parts in this section. The first thing we need to do is to create an HTML file and open it inside the Visual Studio Code. So I'm gonna go to my desktop, create a new folder here. I'm gonna call the folder the name of our project, which is Recipe Book App. And we just right click on it and click on open with code, which is going to open it with Visual Studio Code. Now here we can close the welcome tab, and then as you can see, we have the folder being open inside the Visual Studio Code. So now we can start creating our files here. So I'm gonna click here on this icon. I'm gonna create a new file called index.html. And here we can see that we have an empty HTML file, but we can just use an exclamation mark, as you can see, to get the emit abbreviation. So this suggestion you can get if you have the emit abbreviation enabled in your Visual Studio Code, which is enabled by default. So I'm gonna click here to accept the auto suggestion. Now we have this HTML file. So we have doc type, which is the type of the document we are working on, and tells the browser which version of HTML we are working. As we are using HTML5, we have HTML here. Then we have, after that, we have an HTML tag, which has the language in the opening tag, and it sets to be English and tells the browser the language of the website is English. Then we have the head tag, which has 3 metadata tags. The first one is sets the trusted attribute, UTF-8. UTF-8 is recommended by HTML5 because it nearly contains all the characters and symbols. Then we have this metadata tag, which tells the Internet Explorer browser to use the most recent rendering engine, which is Edge. Then we have the viewport metadata tag, which sets the width of the browser to the device's screen's width. And finally, we have the initial zoom level of the browser, which is set to be 100%. And then we have the title of the browser, which is document. So let's open our website by using the live server extension. If you haven't installed the live server extension, you can find it inside extensions by searching live server. And this is the extension I'm using, live server. You can just click on it and install it. And then after installation, you can have this icon here, go live. And if you click on it, this is going to open it inside your default browser, which is, in my case, is Google Chrome. So now we have the website open and the title is document. Let's bring the website on the right side and the coding on the left side so we can see the changes in real time. So the first things I want to add inside the body section, I want to add a header tag. And inside the header, I'm going to have an H1 tag saying recipe book app, all uppercase and like a capitalized. As you can see, we are seeing the changes in real time because we are using that extension. And also we are using something called GitHub Copilot, which is gonna suggest you code. It's not free. You have to pay $10 per month, but it's free for students to use. This is the extension I'm talking. If you open here, you can just search GitHub Copilot. So this extension. If you install this one, this is going to suggest you with AI. As you can see, when you write down, they give you a suggestion, and if you press tab, you're going to accept the suggestion. This is going to help you to code faster, and this is going to save us some time inside our coding tutorial. So I'm going to type faster the codes, but I'm going to explain them all. So now we're going to have a container. I'm going to have a div with a class of container. We just say container So for having a div with a class of container, you just need to write down dot container. And here inside the container, I'm going to have a UL tag with the ID of recipe item. Recipe list. And then inside this one, we're going to have a list. So in my case, I'm going to have a list with the class of recipe item. Okay. And then inside the list, as you can see, we got the list. We're going to have an image tag. And for now, we're going to hard code some images for our recipes, which is I'm going to get from https clone/spoonecular.com. Let me check that if I didn't make any spelling mistake. So that sounds good. .com/recipe images / for example, we just put some random number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then just say -312 multiply, where it's just adding a x231.jpg. So you can see the image now. It's just a random image. I just can change this random. For example, I just change this 4 to 2. We get a different image. Okay. So now we have the image, and the alternative for this one is going to be recipe number 1. Okay. So I'm going to do the hard-coded image first, and then we are going to just use JavaScript to randomly get this information from the Spoonecular API and show it each time 10 of these recipes. So for now, I'm going to hard-code it because we want to style it later using CSS. We need some data. And then I want to have some h2 tag saying recipe 1. After that, we're going to have a paragraph. And inside this paragraph, we're going to have a strong tag. A strong tag is actually makes it kind of bold. So I'm going to say ingredient. Okay, ingredients, as you can see, and then double clone. And after that, we're going to have our ingredients after the strong tag, which is going to be ingredient, for example, ingredient 1, 2, 3, like this. So later it's going to be real ingredient, like the final version. You see ingredients, one ingredients, real ingredients, and a real title. But now we just hard code something so we can style it using CSS. After that, we're going to have an anchor tag, which is not going anywhere now, but inside is going to say view recipe. Okay. So that's it for the first item. We can just copy this one 2 more times and then just change the things. Using Alt-Shift arrow down, I can copy it 2 more times and just change the images. For example, this is the first one. The second one is going to just change this number to something else. We get a different image. Recipe 2, and ingredients can be the same. And then for the third one, we get a different number to get a different image. Recipe 3, and then that's it. So we have now 3 samples for our HTML tag. So we can start styling this one in the next section using CSS, and then we make it like the final version, responsive, and then it looks like this. So we're going to work on the CSS in the next section. We make the website responsive like this. So see you in the next section for the CSS part of the project. All right, in the last section, we have completed the HTML part of the project. In this section, we're going to work on the CSS and style the project like the one in the final version. We're going to have a header with a different background color. And also we have items, different items with the box shadow, which each item has a different length, like ingredients is longer. Then we have an image and on the left side, and also we have a hovering effect for the button. The first things we need to do is to create a CSS file inside our project. So we go back to our code and we can open the Explorer section using Ctrl-Shift-E. And here we can click on this icon to create a new file, and we can call it a style.css. The file is created, but it is completely empty. And also, before using it, we need to add a link to this file within the HTML code. So we need to come back to HTML file, and at the top, under the title tag, we need to add a link tag. And the link tag is going to be a relationship between the HTML file and the style.css. And the href attribute is the address of the file. And in this case, it's a style.css because the files are located at the same directory. So now we can start styling our project. Let's bring the Visual Studio Code on the left side and our website on the right side, so we can code and see it on the real time. First, we start with the body section. I want to remove the default margin, and let's set the margin to 0, and also padding to 0 because we have a default margin and padding. Now, let's change the font family. I want the font family to be Arial, but if the Arial is not available, we want to use sans serif. It should be Arial. Okay, as you can see, the font is changed, and we can just use it like that. After the body section, we're going to work on the header. If you look at the final version, you can see that we have a header, and inside the header, we have h1 tag. So we just target the header first, and we change the background color. Let's accept these things. Actually, these suggestions are coming from GitHub Copilot. As you can see, we got this suggestion, and they brought it in the center, and also add some padding of 20 pixels around the element and bring it to the center using text align center. But let's change the background color to 0C2461. And after the header, let's target the h1 tag. I want to make the max width, the margin. I want to set the margin to 0. And also I want to set the font size to 36 pixels. Okay, so this one looks okay. Now let's install this container. We have a container in the HTML file that is covering everything. There is a container here, as you can see, which if you look at the final version, it has a maximum width, so it never goes more than that. And also it's different, it has a different behavior in different sizes. So now we just target that container here. We just say dot container. And one of the things I want to do, the margin is fine. I want to make the margin 0 and left and right to be auto. And also I want to set the max width to be 1200 pixels. So this way, it's always going to be in the middle with this much size in the left and right. And then let's add some padding of 20 pixels to push everything inside for 20 pixels. After that, we're going to target the recipe list, this one, UL tag. It has an ID. Let's see. Yeah, it has an ID. We can add a class name too. We can add a class of recipe list. So we can target this one using dot recipe list. And this is going to, first thing first, I want to remove the list style because we have a dot here, as you can see, dot. We want to set it to be none. So we remove these dots, and we set the margin and padding to 0. So we don't have any space around it. And then let's style the li inside it, this li, which is the recipe item. So we can target the recipe item, recipe-item. So what we want to do here, we want to set the display to flex. So bring everything next to each other like this. And then we want to bring them to the center using align items center. This is going to bring them in the center vertically. And then we want to add a space between them. So we just say justify content, a space between. And let's add some margin at the bottom. Margin bottom. This is going to be 20 pixels. And then let's add some box shadow. The box shadow, we want to add some shadow effect. 0 for the X 2 pixels for the white, set 5 pixels for blurriness, and we use RGBA to have some shadow effect like this. RGBA stands for red, green, blue, and alpha. So for the red, we set 0, 0 for green, for blue 0, and we just set 20% transparency for the black color, because 0, 0, 0 gives us black, and then we just add this kind of shadow now. Now we have the shadow. Let's add some border radius, for example, 5 pixels. And in order to see the effects of the border radius in the corners, we can just remove the overflow, and we just set the overflow to hidden. As you can see, now the image has the corner as well. Okay, so that was it for the recipe item. Now we want to install the image inside it. So we just say recipe item image. As you can see, we got the suggestion. So we're going to make the image smaller. Instead of 100, I want to make it 150. And then object cover is going to stretch the image so it can be always at the same aspect ratio. And after that, we're going to install this h2 tag, the recipe 1, recipe 2. So we're going to just target the recipe item h2. And here we're going to remove the margin. That is fine. So margin 0. We set the font size to be 20 pixels. And then we add some 10 pixels padding. So as you can see. And also we want to set the minimum width to be 200 pixels. So add some space, in case we have a longer recipe name. And then we're going to target the paragraphs that we have. So we just say dot recipe item paragraph. So we remove the margin. We set some, as you can see, 10 pixels padding. We set the font size to be 16. We don't need it because 16 is a default font size. And the color is this color. We can remove the color too, but I think it looks good too. We can just keep the color. Okay. And then finally, we want to target the anchor tag, this tag, the button. So let's accept the suggestion, see what we can do with that. So the background color is good. We have a color of white. We have some padding, 10 pixels and 20 pixels for the left and right. Instead of this, we can just add a minimum width. So we can just say minimum width. And we set this one to be, for example, 150 pixels. And we set the padding of 10 pixels as well. It looks like that. And we have used the text decoration none to remove some underline effect, text ref. We make it the uppercase. We set the font size to be 14. And also we have added a transition on the background color that we haven't applied yet. So we need to add the hover effect. So hover effect is going to change the color of this background. For example, we make it a different color of 1E3799, which is a brighter color. And also the color is already white. We don't need it. This transition is going to add some smooth effect on this changing color. Okay. So now we have this one. It looks like this in the big size, but we want to make this one responsive on the smaller size. This was for the largest screen. Now we want to target a smaller size. So we need to add a media query, which is going to target the sizes like the less than 768 pixels. And for the recipe item, we want to change the flex direction to column, or we can just change the flex wrap to wrap. This is going to bring everything based on the size on top of each other. As you can see. So the bigger size we have, they go on top of each other, but we can use the flex direction column. This is going to bring everything on top of each other no matter of the size of the screen. It's up to you. You can use different methods. I think we have an extra. Let's remove it. So after the recipe item, let's target the image. We want to set the image, the width to be 100% and height to be, I set it to be auto, actually, it's nicer, it's bigger. And then we set some margin bottom of 10 pixels. Okay, then after the image, we're going to set the h2 tag. We set the font size to be 20 pixels, heading up 0, and we add some margin at the bottom of 10 pixels. Finally, let's style the paragraph, which is going to have margin bottom of 10 pixels and font size to be 14 pixels. And the anchor tag is going to have a width of 100%, so that this one is going to be 100%. And in order to bring this text to the center, we can just we can remove the margin bottom, and then we can use text align center to bring the text in the center like this. But for example, title, we can just set the text align. Instead of center, we just say a start. I think it's already a start, but it has some weird heading actually. Let's see the final version. So yeah, let's apply this one to the container too. So for the container, I want to set the max width to be 90%. Okay, so this is going to add some 10% left and right. The reason you see this recipe is because the title, actually, because it's a small title, it looks like this. If the title is a real title, you can see it completely come to the left side. So let's complete this website using JavaScript. If we see any problem with the CSS, we can come back and fix it. But for now, this one looks good. And this is a small size. The big size looks like this. As you can see, the transition between the small and big size. Okay, so that was it for styling the project using CSS. We have styled it first for the big size, and then for the mobile size, we have added a media query and set it the maximum width to be 768 pixels. And then based on that, we have just styled everything based on the mobile size that we prefer. So that was it for the CSS section. In the next section, we're going to work on the JavaScript part, and we're going to fetch data from an API called, I think it's called Espanicular, something like that. I'm going to teach you how to get the API key from this website and get the information and show it inside the website. Based on that, I'm going to, and then this is going to be random, and each time you refresh the page, you set and you get different element, and also you're going to learn how to create an element, how to add the element to another element using JavaScript. So see you in the next section for the JavaScript part of the project. All right, in the last section, we have completed the CSS part of the project. In this section, we're going to work on the JavaScript part and add functionality to the website and get the real data instead of these hard-coded values that we have created inside the index.html file. So the first thing we need to do is to create a JavaScript file inside our project. So we go back to Visual Studio Code and we can open the Explorer section using Ctrl-Shift-E, and here we can just create a new file and we call it index.js, and we need to add a link to this file within the HTML code. So we need to come back to index.html, and just at the end of the body tag, we need to add a script tag with the address of index.js, because both files are located at the same directory. We have put the src index.js, and also we have put the script tag at the end of the body tag because we need all elements of the HTML to be loaded first, and then we add functionality to them. So the first things we need to do is to create and initialize a function. So we're going to create a function and we call it init, and we're going to call this function here So once the person comes to the website, this is going to trigger this function, and this is going to fetch new data from the API. So here we're going to create a constant, and we call it recipes, and this is going to be equal to wait, because we want to wait for the result and then show it. So we just say get recipes. We call a function called get recipes. And as we are using await, we need to change this function to asynchronous, which means that this part is going to be waited, and then we go to the next line. And then now we have to create this function, which is going to be asynchronous as well, because we need to use asyncs here too. So asynchronous function called get recipes, which is going to get the information from the API. So what API we want to use is, there is a website called Spunicular. You just search Spunicular on the Google, and in the search results you see a website called Spunicular, and this is a food API and recipe API. We need to sign up for the API to get the API key. So I'm just gonna go and start now. Just create an email, enter your email. I'm going to enter my email, create a password for it, and then by checking their terms of service, we can just sign up. So we got sign up to this website. We can just go and we need to confirm our email. So we go to Gmail. I think came here to the promotion. You just click here to confirm your account. So now it's confirmed. I just need to put my email again and go to the website. Okay. So after logging in, we go to our dashboard, as you can see. And then here we see that we have our profile here. And then we can get our API key here inside the profile. So we can just generate a new one. We can click here. We just copy this API key and we go back to our website. And here at the top, I'm going to create a new constant called API underline key uppercase. And this is going to be equal to that API key that we have copied. We just need to put it inside a double quote. Now we can just fetch the data from this API. We just say const response. We create a response constant response. And this is going to be equal to await, because we need to wait for the result, and we need to use a method called fetch. And inside this fetch, we are going to put our API URL, which is going to be as follows: https://api.spunicular.com/recipes, and then /random, because we want to get the random result and the number of things we want to get. So you add a question mark, number equals 10. We want to get 10 results. And then here we can just add our API key. We just add an and here. First is a question mark, the first query, and then we have the second query, which is API key, which is equal to the API key that we have created at the top. We can add a variable here using $sign and a set of curly braces and just write down API key. And you need to use a backtick here instead of single quote. This is backtick. Backtick is located on the top of the tab key. So once you create the fetch data, we can just get the data. We just create a constant called data, and this is going to await, and we just convert this response to a JSON file so we can use it in our website. So we just say JSON. JSON is a method, JavaScript method to convert a string to JSON, and then now we can return the response data dot response, so recipes. So we're going to get the data, and the recipes is inside this array called recipes. So if we now console log this recipes here, so we just go here and console log recipes, And then if you go to our website, let's close these things. We don't need them anymore. And open the console using F12. Let's refresh the page. As you can see, we got 10 results here. And each of them, they have kind of information. Let's review what they have. For example, they have ingredients. So we need for our ingredient part. We have an image. For example, if I copy this image and put it here, we see the image. So each recipe has an image. It has a source. So if you go, for example, to this source, this is going to get the full information about the recipe. If it's vegan, vegetarian, and everything else, you can see the, for example, this is a vegetarian. And so we're going to use this kind of information to fill our website, the recipe name. We're going to fill the ingredients. Also, we want to fill the website URL. So when we click on it, we go to that particular website. So instead of console logging, we're going to display the recipe. So I'm going to create a function. I call it display recipe. And then I'm going to pass this recipe data as an input of this function. And let's create that function at the top. This function doesn't need to be asynchronous because it doesn't have any weight inside it. So I'm going to create the function, call it display recipes. We get the input, which is recipes. And here we're going to create, if you remember, we have our recipe list UI, which includes recipe item. We want to fill this recipe list with a new list, and each of them is going to be one of the recipes we get from this API. So first, the recipe list, which we can get using a method called getElementById. So because it has an ID of recipe list, we can just go here and just create a constant, and we call it recipe list element. And this is going to be equal to document because we want to target all the document, all the browser. And we use a method called getElementById. And the ID we want to get is recipe-list. So we have this element. First we make it empty. So we just say recipe list element.inner HTML is going to be an empty string. So if you go to our website now, it's completely empty because it's an empty string after calling that function. But we want to fill it with something else. So this recipe that we get, it's not only one, it's 10 recipes. So we can use for each method to get each of them. So we use for each method. For each method is going to give us each recipe. So this is a singular recipe. And then when we have each recipe, we're going to create the elements, the li elements. So we just say recipe item element. This is going to be equal to document dot create. This time we use create element, and the elements we want to create is li. So we create it like this. So we create this li element, but we want to add this class to it too, the class of recipe item. So what we do here, we just say this element that is created, let's add a class list to it. We just say class list dot add, and then we add the recipe item name as a class list. And when we created this, we can add it to this recipe list element. Okay. So here at the end, we just say recipe list element dot append child. And the child we want to append is this recipe item element here. So this is going to add this li with this class to this recipe list. But this is completely empty. We don't have anything else. We have to add the image. We have to add the other things as well. So the first things I want to add so you can see the result is the image. So after that, we're going to create the recipe image element. Let's create it using the same method, document.createElement. And instead of li, we want to create img, an image tag. Then we want to add the source to it. If you remember in HTML, we have the image and then we have the src, which is the source. First, we hard-coded a value, but we want to put it a real value, which is coming from the API, and each of them, the recipe dot image, it has recipe.image. So now we have created this src. We have created this image. We have created its src. Let's add also the alt value, alternative text. And this is just for now, we just say recipe image. Later we can make it dynamic. And then now we want to add this one to this li. We added to this li element, which is going to be added finally to the list, which is a UL. So let's add this recipe. Let's copy this, and we use append child method. Sorry, we have to append child to this one, to this li, which is recipe item element. We want to append the child of this recipe image element. So we use this recipe image element. We have created that. We have added the src. We have added the alt tag. Now we have added that one to the recipe item element, which is the li tag. And then after that, we have added the li tag to this ul tag. So now let's see what's this error. Let me check. There is a spelling mistake here. Recipe image element. It looks okay for me. That's fine. Let's check the website. Now we got the image of 10 of them. We have added that. So if you refresh the page, each time we get 10 new elements. Okay, 10 new images. Because keep going, get the random images. So we have created the image part. We just can continue doing the same things for the ingredients. We can do it for the title and also for the link. So it is going to be very similar. So I highly recommend you pause the video and do the rest of the projects yourself, because you already know how to do it. Otherwise, you just keep watching the video. I'm going to do all of them now. Okay, so let's create the next element, which is going to be recipe title element. And this is going to be document.create element. And we're going to create an element of h2 tag. So this element is going to be h2. And inside it, this is going to be we want to change its inner, you can just say inner text. We're going to change the text inside it to be recipe.title. Okay. And then we want to append it too. So we're going to copy this one. And I want to append this title as well to this recipe item. Now we see the title too. Okay. So we have the title, we have the image. And if you refresh the page, each time we get a new title and image. Okay. Next, we want to do the ingredients. It's a bit different, because ingredients, it's not one, it's an array of ingredients. So we need to map through the ingredients and then connect them together. So we just say ingredient element or ingredients element, because it's plural. And this is going to be equal to document.create element. And the element we want to create is a paragraph. Now we want to change its inner HTML. So we just say recipe ingredient el dot inner HTML is going to be equal to, because we want to make it dynamic, we add a backtick. And inside the backtick, we're going to have, if you remember, we had a strong tag for the title. We just say strong. Inside, we're going to say ingredients equal. Let's close this strong tag. And then we're going to have the dynamic variable using $sign and instead of curly braces. And all the ingredients is inside recipe.extended ingredients. So just make sure you don't make a spelling mistake. Ingredients. And then, as I mentioned before, because it's not only one ingredient, we need to map through it. So we just say .map. You cannot use for each method, because for each method does not return an array, but map method returns an array. So we get each ingredient here, and each ingredient inside it is inside ingredient.original. Now that we got the three together, it's an array, so we can just connect them together. So when we get all of them, we can just connect them together using join, but we want to join them by comma and a space. So if now we have created this element, let's add it here as a child. So I'm going to paste this one here too. So if you refresh the page, so we are getting an error. Probably we made some spelling mistake. So I'm going to check again. So this is going to be recipe.extended ingredients. So that one looks good. Ingredients. And then we just map through it. We got each ingredient. And this is going to be ingredient.original. That is fine. And then we join them together with this one. And also we have closed this. Okay. So let's check the error here. Let's open the console. Let's refresh the page. Cannot read the value on the find. Okay. So let me remove this one for now. We see the error is related to that one or something else. Let's refresh. Now we are getting that error. I think I'm getting the 4.2 error. I think it's a too much request error. So let me check. Okay. So let me pause the video. I changed my API key and then I'm gonna do it again because I have requested too many times. So they're gonna block me for a while. So it happens sometimes. So you need to just change your API key or something like that. All right, so I have changed my API key. Now it's working. So what we do now is let's remove these comments so we can test the ingredient as well. So now we are getting the ingredients too. As you can see, some of the recipes, they don't have an image, so it's gonna mess up. But now we have the ingredients, so it's working now. If it happens to you again, you can create another account or you can wait for another day because they have a limit of API requests daily. So you can just try it another day. But because I'm teaching now, we are refreshed too much, it happens to me. But if you do it one time, never happens. All right, so let's continue. I'm just gonna finish the project by adding the anchor tag too. So we can create another document. So let's copy this. So let's create the last one, which is recipe link element, which is going to be equal to document.create element. And this is going to be an anchor tag. And finally, we're gonna add the href for this anchor tag, which is going to be equal to recipe.source URL. And also we want to have the text inside it, which is going to be .inner text, which is going to say view recipe. Okay. And then we're going to add it to this item. So I'm going to copy this one and put it here as a child of the item. So now we have this icon, this button too. So if you click on it, this is going to show you, let me find a website. Okay, let's refresh the page. I want to find a good food to show you. Okay, most of them is from this website for this stuff. For example, the first one, the 10 minutes brownie, you can just click on it and go for it. Some of the links are broken, but it is going to work anyway, so it's fine. So you can see the link actually here at the bottom. Each of them has a different link. All right, so we have created this website. Let's now, when you finish your JavaScript, you can just delete all the hard-coded values. For example, this from here, we can remove all these lists. So I'm gonna just keep it for your reference. So I'm gonna just use Ctrl// to comment it. So now each time you come, you don't see anything else. You just see an ingredient. Okay. So that was it for our project. I hope you enjoyed and learned many things. We have worked and learned how to grab some data from an API like the Spunicular website. And also we have learned how to create an element, how to add an element as a child of another element. And also we have learned how to initialize a website, create a function, and call another function inside another one. So here, let's review what we have done. We have got the API key, and also we have created the elements here. First, we have created the li element, and we have added a class list to it. And then we have created an image element. We have added the src and all alternative text. We have created an h2 tag, a paragraph, and also an anchor tag. And finally, we have added all of them to this recipe element, recipe item. And finally, we have added the item to the UL, which is a recipe list element. And also we have learned how to fetch data using the fetch method. So that was it for our project. I hope you enjoyed. See you in the next project.